Welcome back. It is an honor and privilege to welcome my first guest back to the show. Please welcome the 44th President of the United States, President Barack Obama.
It's good to be back.
It's good to have you back, sir. And of course, the big news this week, Gaddafi's dead, rebel forces, killed by rebel forces. Your reaction, your take on this?
Well, this is somebody who for 40 years had terrorized his country, had supported terrorism, and he had an opportunity during the Arab Spring to finally let loose of his grip on power and to peacefully transition to democracy. We gave him ample opportunity, and he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And obviously, you never like to see anybody come to the kind of end that he did. But I think it's obviously sends a strong message around the world to dictators that people long to be free, and they need to respect the human rights and the universal aspirations of people.
Now, the mob mentality, and it was a rebel mob, I guess. It wasn't a government. Right. They televised the death. Your thoughts on that?
Obviously that's not something that I think we should relish. And there was a reason after bin Laden was killed, for example, we didn't release the photograph. I think that there's a certain decorum with which you treat the dead, even if it's somebody who has done terrible things.
Now, you took some heat for the whole leading from behind tactic here with Libya. Explain that.
Well, the truth was this was a phrase that the media picked up on, but it's not one that I ever used. We led from the front. I mean, we introduced the resolution in the United Nations that allowed us to protect civilians in Libya when Gaddafi was threatening to slaughter them. It was our extraordinary men and women in uniform, our pilots, who took out their air defense systems, set up a no-fly zone. It was our folks in NATO who were helping to coordinate the NATO operation there. And the difference here is we were able to organize the international community. We were able to get the UN mandate for the operation. We were able to get Arab countries involved. And so there was never this sense that somehow we were unilaterally making a decision to take out somebody. Rather, it was the world community, and that's part of the reason why this whole thing only cost us $1 billion, as opposed to $1 trillion. Not a single U.S. troop was on the ground. Not a single U.S. Troop was killed or injured. And that, I think, is a recipe for success in the future.
Let me ask you about that, because with Osama bin Laden, I remember the night before you were at the correspondence dinner and the whole deal. How hard was it to make that decision to send in those Navy SEALs? Because that could have been...
Could have been a disaster. I mean, but the reason I was able to do it was when you meet these SEALs and you talk to them, they are the best of the best. They are professional, they are precise, they practice, they train, they understand what exactly they intend to do. They're prepared for the worst in almost every circumstance. So even though it was 50-50 that bin Laden would be there, I was 100% confident in them. And I could not have made that decision were it not for the fact that our men and women in uniform are the best there is. They're unbelievable.
Now, you just announced the troops coming out of Iraq. We have like 4,000, I think, were killed. Billions of dollars spent. 9 years. What was accomplished? What did we accomplish there?
Well, look, Saddam Hussein is gone, and that's a good thing.
Right.
The Iraqis now have the opportunity to create their own democracy, their own country, determine their own destiny. I'm cautiously optimistic that they've realized that the way they should resolve conflict is not through killing each other, but rather through dialogue and discussion and debate. And so that would not have been possible had it not been for the extraordinary sacrifices, not just of our armed forces, but also their families. You know, when you think about the rotations that, over 1 million of our troops went through, and reservists and National Guardsmen and women, and the strain that that placed on those families during this long period, it's remarkable. So I think Americans can rightly be proud that we have given Iraqis an opportunity to determine their own destiny. But I also think that policymakers and future presidents need to understand what it is that we're getting ourselves into when we make some of these decisions. And there might have been other ways for us to accomplish those same goals. But the main thing right now is to celebrate the extraordinary work that our men and women did, and having them home for the holidays for good is going to be a big deal.
Well, let me ask you now, many members of the GOP opposed withdrawing from Iraq.
It's shocking that they opposed something I proposed. It doesn't.
But I mean, wasn't it originally? Didn't they want to get out of Iraq?
Well, look, I don't know exactly how they're thinking about it. As you said, we've been in there for years. Over 4,000 young men and women killed, tens of thousands injured, some of them for life. Spent close to $1 trillion on this operation. I think the vast majority of the American people feel as if it is time to bring this war to a close, particularly because we still have we still have work to do in Afghanistan. We're transitioning to Afghan lead there. Our guys are still, and gals are still making sacrifices there. We would not have been able to do as good of a job in decimating Al-Qaeda's leadership over the last 2 years if we had still been focused solely on Iraq. And one of the arguments I made way back in 2007 was if we were able to bring the war in Iraq to a close, then that would allow us to go after the folks who perpetrated 9/11. And obviously, we've been very successful in doing that. We're not done yet, but Al-Qaeda is weaker than any time in recent memory. We've taken out their top leadership consistently, and that's been a big accomplishment.
Can I ask you about taking out their top leadership, al-Awlaki, this guy, American-born terrorist? How important was he to al-Qaeda?
You know, what had happened was we put so much pressure on al-Qaeda in the Afghan-Pakistan region that their affiliates were actually becoming more of a threat to the United States. So al-Awlaki was their head of external operations. This is the guy that inspired and helped to facilitate the Christmas Day bomber. This is a guy who was actively planning a whole range of operations here in the homeland and was focused on the homeland. And so this was probably the most important al-Qaeda threat that was out there after bin Laden was taken out. And it was important that working with the Yemenis, we were able to remove him from the field.
Now, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you about Hillary Clinton and her whole role. More with the president right after this. Welcome back. Talking, of course, with the president of the United States. So tell me about Hillary Clinton and the job she's doing.
She has been, I think, as good of a Secretary of State as we've seen in this country. She's been outstanding. She's done a great job. Really proud of her.
I mean, something I think is really great is the fact that you guys are both rivals, and I did a lot of jokes about you guys going after each other, but you come together for the sake of the country, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Tell me about how that works.
You know, it really wasn't that difficult. The truth is, Hillary and I agree on the vast majority of issues. We did during the campaign. In fact, one of the problems with all those debates was you started running out of stuff to say because we had a similar worldview. She was, I think, understandably tired after the campaign and hesitant about whether or not this would be a good fit. And I told her that I had complete confidence in her, that the country needed her. She stepped up to the plate. She works as hard as anybody I've ever seen. She is tenacious. And we are really very proud of her. The entire national security team that we've had has been outstanding. And it's not just rivals within the Democratic Party. I mean, my Secretary of Defense, Bob Gates, was a Republican. He was a carryover from the Bush administration. He made an outstanding contribution. I think one of the things that we have done is been able to restore a sense that, whatever our politics, when it comes to our national security, when it comes to the national defense, everybody has to be on the same page. And so the question now is, as we end the war in Iraq, it is time for us to rebuild this country. And can we get that same kind of cooperation when it comes to fixing what's wrong here?
Now, let me ask you something. This is a fun story. This is stuff I love. This rumor that Joe Biden and Hillary might swap, and she might run for vice president, and he might, is there any...
Joe Biden is not only a great vice president, but he has been a great advisor and a great friend of me. So I think that they're doing great where they are, and both of them are racking up a lot of miles. Joe tends to go more to Pittsburgh. Hillary's going to Karachi, but but they've both got important work to do. They're doing great.
Yeah, but you don't want to say big effing deal in Karachi. That could cause a problem. Now, the approval rating. The bad news is your approval rating is 41%.
Right.
The good news is you're still 3 times better than Congress. They're at 13%. So explain. If you're grading down a curve, you're killing. You're killing.
Look, we have gone through the worst financial crisis, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. People are hurting out there, and they've been hurting out there for a while, and people were having a tough time even before the crisis. Incomes, wages were all flat. Costs of everything from college to health care to gas to food, all of it was going up. And so people were feeling a lot of pressure even before this crisis. And so every day I wake up saying to myself, look, you can't expect folks to feel satisfied right now. I'm very proud of the work that we've done over the last 2-3 years, but they're exactly right. We've got more work to do. And that's why right now, for example, our biggest challenge is to make sure that we're putting people back to work. We stabilize the economy, but there are not enough people working. And so we put forward this jobs bill that has proposals that traditionally have been supported by Democrats and Republicans. I mean, we've got putting construction workers back to work, rebuilding our roads and our bridges. And I suspect folks here in L.A. would say that there are some roads that could be fixed. That's just my guess.
See, here's the part. And the thing that angers me, and I think a lot of Americans, is I didn't like it when they did it to President Bush. I don't like when they do it to you. When Mitch McConnell says, our goal is to make